It's known as both a paranormal hotspot and a living laboratory of anomalous phenomena. To many of the indigenous Ute tribe and Navajo in this area, it's been deemed a cursed land by a shape-shifting witch known as the Skinwalker. This is how the basin in the northwestern part of Utah, and more specifically, a 512-acre property in the basin, would eventually become known as Skinwalker Ranch. Original owner Terry Sherman got so spooked by the happenings on this new cattle ranch that 18 months after moving his family of 4 to the property, he would pack up the family, sell the ranch, and never look back. The Shermans would share their terrifying tales of crop circles forming out of nowhere, UFO sightings, systematic and repeated mutilation of their cattle, and strange shape-shifting creatures prowling the property. As news spread, it caught the attention of Las Vegas real estate magnate, Bigelow Aerospace founder, and UFO enthusiast Robert Bigelow. Bigelow purchased the property within 3 months of the Shermans' departure. Under the name the National Institute for Discovery Science, or NIDS, Bigelow set up round-the-clock surveillance of the ranch, hoping to get to the bottom of the paranormal claims. At one point, even the Pentagon got involved. In an interview with investigative reporter George Knapp, Bigelow revealed that he had just created BASS, an offshoot of Bigelow Aerospace, and that BASS had entered into a partnership with an unnamed entity to study UFOs and other strange phenomena. The public didn't know at the time, but 1 week earlier, Bigelow had signed a contract with the Defense Intelligence Agency to carry out an investigation under the umbrella of AWSAP, the Advanced Aerospace Weapons Systems Application Program. The impetus for the program had occurred a year earlier, when a senior scientist from the DIA visited Skinwalker Ranch and had a highly unusual encounter with an unknown intelligence. The scientist returned to Washington, D.C., met with U.S. Senators Harry Reid, Daniel Inouye, and Ted Stevens, and proposed the creation of a special classified study of UFOs and related phenomena. The 3 lawmakers agreed to sponsor such a program and secured $22 million to fund it. In the time of AWSAP, BASS, and the work being done by NIDS, very little concrete physical evidence revealed itself at the ranch. But the surveillance did yield a book, Hunt for the Skinwalker, in which many that investigated at the ranch did have meaningful and highly anomalous experiences that they shared in the book. But as time moved on, Bigelow decided to move on as well, putting Skinwalker Ranch, just like the Shermans, up for sale. Enter Brandon Fugal. In 2016, Utah-based real estate mogul and investor, Fugal had a chance encounter with Bigelow and decided to purchase the ranch as a complete skeptic, but open to the possibility that something strange may be going on at this ranch. Fugal tightened up security, hired a team of researchers to study the anomalies, and helped launch the History Channel television series, The Secret of Skinwalker Ranch, to document the team's findings. After a highly successful first season, the team returns May 4th on the History Channel for the Season 2 premiere. Today, Brandon Fugal joins us to talk all about what led him to purchase Skinwalker Ranch, some of the compelling evidence he and the team have uncovered, what's to come in Season 2, and what turned him from a skeptic to a believer in the blink of an eye. This is The Secret of Skinwalker Ranch.
This is Somewhere in the Skies with Ryan Sprague.
Brandon Fugal, welcome to Somewhere in the Skies for the very first time.
Hey, it's good to be with you. And
Thank you.
Look forward to answering any questions you have and also addressing a lot of the questions that you've received from the audience preparatory to this podcast.
Yeah. I will tell you, I got more listener questions for this one than any other episode, including with Luis Elizondo. So you got him beat, man. So we'll fire through those. I do have a couple personal questions first for you that I'm pretty curious about. So I'll just ask the origin story. How did it come to be? You purchasing the ranch? Maybe give us a little background of who you are, where you grew up. And what ultimately led you to purchase this crazy spot in Utah?
You bet. Well, thank you. I've lived most of my life in a little town called Pleasant Grove, Utah, with the exception of 2 years that I spent in Hawaii as a missionary for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. I was one of the lucky few to get called to the islands and served on Oahu and Big Island. But for the most part, I've lived my entire life and am, multi-generational resident of Pleasant Grove, Utah. I started my commercial real estate career young, which is my primary area of focus. Jumped into commercial brokerage 1 week out of high school and have focused most of my adult life on corporate real estate and really helping to build community and working with a lot of really exciting projects and visionaries and entrepreneurs to help them with their real estate strategies. I have also ventured off into other areas. I've funded everything from software companies to renewable energy, and I have a scientific device company that I spun out of Brigham Young University that is really exciting, called Accend. But through some of those other ventures, I was introduced to several scientists. In fact, over a decade ago, I had been involved with a gravitational physics lab and funding that effort and helping to lead that, and the relationships forged during that experience ended up leading me to the introduction to Mr. Bigelow. Even though I had read the book back in, 2006, 2007, as a curiosity piece, something that is interesting here in Utah, I really never imagined that I would ever have occasion to visit the ranch or converse with Mr. Bigelow. And in fact, have never had a UFO experience or a paranormal experience prior to acquiring the property. And so, several scientists reached out to me and asked if I would be willing to take a meeting with Mr. Bigelow to discuss a potential joint venture or acquisition of the property, as they saw an opportunity to advance the stewardship, as Mr. Bigelow has focused most of his efforts on Bigelow Aerospace and his private, space habitats program, the inflatables program that he acquired from NASA. They felt it was, time for the baton to be passed, so to speak. And so ended up having a meeting with him at his invitation down in Las Vegas that grew into negotiation that led to my acquisition of the property. And we enjoy, I think, a good, friendly association to this day. I have great respect for Mr. Bigelow.
Absolutely. And again, sort of that passing on of the torch. I know you've answered this question a lot in the past. A lot of people wanted to know, well, what information did you acquire from Mr. Bigelow? But I understand, that was a whole different time, a whole different structure. He was answering to the government, whereas, you came along and I have to thank you first and foremost for being so open and transparent with the public about all this, whether it's through the TV show. You're so accessible on things like Twitter and whatnot, and willing to have discussions like this one today.
Yeah, I just want to mention, I consider my ownership a stewardship, and I really do want to engage the public and reveal what we discover. I believe that we have really the potential, the greatest science project of our time out at Skinwalker Ranch. I mean, we have the most scientifically studied paranormal hotspot on the planet that just happened to be part of a Pentagon-funded black budget program for a number of years. And the opportunity to advance that research and to be able to share that with the public and to help, I think, reveal that there is more than meets the eye to our existence, to our reality, and really as we take the leap forward, in looking at the next frontier for mankind. I think this is an extraordinary opportunity, and it's something I'm very privileged to be able to share with all of you.
You mentioned reality. I'd love to get your opinion on this. I mean, you had a pretty dramatic experience after getting on the ranch with the UFO encounter. I am a UFO podcast, so I got to ask you, could you maybe run us through briefly that UFO event that you witnessed and how it kind of opened your eyes that, yep, it's here we go, hit the ground running. We got UFOs over the ranch. How did that all happen?
Yeah, my transition from being a skeptic to an experiencer was quite dramatic. For the first 6 months that I owned the property, I didn't see anything unusual. I didn't have any unusual experience personally, and didn't even feel any dark, ominous presence on the property. I just felt that it was a strikingly beautiful backdrop that has a diversity, everything from that long mesa plateau that runs the expanse to the cave systems that lie in that plateau, to the waterways and the old pioneer homesteads that are scattered across the property. I just really fell in love with the landscape and remained a skeptic until about 6 months into my ownership. We were hosting a dignitary and his entourage, his team, which included 2 security professionals. And that day, everything changed. We saw everything from electromagnetic anomalies to individuals experiencing acute medical episodes to actual visible sighting of what can only be described as UFO craft in broad daylight above the mesa right in front of us, as clear as day. And, we estimate that, it was about a 40, 50 foot long disc-like object that was silver grayish and performed maneuvers that were just mind-blowing. I mean, split-second maneuvers back and forth, up and down, and then ended up just zipping off into the distance and was gone in an instant. And the whole episode, even though it only lasted about 20 seconds, I mean, we had multiple witnesses there with me that I'd never met before that day. I haven't spoken to after. Both those gentlemen actually earlier in the day had expressed to me that they were skeptics, that they didn't believe that there was anything to the lore and a lot of the claims, but they were there to support the visiting dignitary. And so we were all very caught off guard. You could honestly say you had 3 skeptics and non-experiencers that had a profound experience that to this day it's undeniable, and it's driven me to really increase our capabilities on site and the platforms that have been created by our scientists, and most notably Eric Bard, who is just my right hand and the principal investigator, has been with us since the beginning.
Yeah, he's come up with some cool, innovative stuff, which we'll definitely touch on in the listener questions here. Some really good ones. I got some scientists who want to pick your brain a little bit. But let's, I guess, talk a little bit about season 2. So premiering on May 4th. And I was very fortunate to see the premiere episode, and you guys hit the ground running. There was no messing around. Like we're in the thick of it again. And one of the big things I noticed, Brandon, was you stressing to your team safety and precaution. I mean, as we saw in the first season of your show, there are some pretty dramatic physical elements that occurred to your team on the base, and we've heard, on the ranch, and we've heard stories of that happening in the past as well. So you brought in a gentleman named Dr. Christopher Lee. So I was wondering, could you tell us a little about who he is, what he does, and maybe do you feel as if the ranch is, as you're poking and prodding, getting more dangerous as you're uncovering things?
Yeah, good questions. Dr. Lee is a world-renowned radiation oncologist. Has done work at Harvard and is a partner up in several clinics in the Pacific Northwest, and also happens to be a close friend of mine, a dear friend of mine since 5th grade. I've known Chris since we were 11 years old, and he was 4.0 student, top of our class, and is someone that I respect and trust. And so as we've encountered some very serious acute medical episodes on the property, especially those that have involved some type of anomalous radiation, it was important in my mind to bring out an expert, and he was willing to consent to be on the program and frankly collaborate with the team openly and help us with our health and safety protocols. I mean, in season 1, it was very evident that both Dr. Taylor and also Thomas Winterton have had incidents that defy explanation, where they've gone to the hospital, to the emergency room. But one thing that we cannot disclose due to HIPAA guidelines and privacy issues is the fact that we've had a number of other people that have ended up in the hospital, over the course of the last year or two, with mysterious illnesses and injuries, we believe as a result of the activity on the ranch. And so we take the risks very seriously. We don't know where it's coming from. It's transient. It's very unusual. And, there's a reason why we have liability waivers signed by everyone who comes on the property and participates. It's a dangerous place. Bad things happen. I think we're dealing with both malevolent and also benevolent forces on the ranch, and also benign. I mean, those that probably are neutral, but we're definitely dealing with things that I think require a degree of caution, reverence, and frankly humility as we approach the property. I mean, you saw in episode 1 of the first season, my brother Cameron, who is my pilot and an expert aviator, he offered a prayer as he entered the airspace surrounding the ranch with Dr. Taylor to introduce Taylor to the property for the first time. All of that was absolutely in every way genuine, authentic. That was indeed the first time that Dr. Taylor had set eyes on the property, and that's a practice that we take very seriously, that we encourage all who enter the property to really engage, to prepare themselves spiritually, and to armor themselves, because we're dealing with forces that we just don't understand.
Yeah, right. Oh man, there's so many questions that I have just with those few statements you made. But let's I want to focus on the word transient for a minute. George Knapp, Bob Bigelow, even Luis Elizondo's told me of this phenomenon on the ranch, this hitchhiker phenomenon of taking something home with you.
Oh, and, yeah.
It's very prevalent and real from what these reporters and investigators have said. So I'll flat out ask, have you ever had a hitchhiker experience, brought something home with you, or members of the team?
I haven't at all, and I'm the owner, but members of my team have. Members of my team have experienced strange phenomena, and past participants, including Mr. Bigelow, have had very profound negative experiences. In fact, there are military operatives and senior members of the intelligence community that refuse to ever set foot on that property again. I mean, these are people that are accustomed to dealing with high stress situations that in some cases I think are battle hardened, and there is a real hesitation on the part of many who've had experiences on the ranch to ever come back. In fact, we've invited several to come back as part of our collaborative effort, and have had our invitations refused, which I understand and respect. I completely respect, that there are some very legitimate concerns. And again, we have everyone sign a liability waiver and give the disclaimer that you're really taking risk when you enter Skinwalker Ranch. You're entering a place that for a long time has been a center of gravity for unexplained paranormal phenomena.
Yeah, you have no idea what you're walking into to this day, and that's what you guys are trying to uncover. And one of the big things, I don't want to give away too much of the premiere, but a big source of contention in the first season was, do we dig or not dig? And I know a lot of people have their opinions, whether it's because it's it's an indigenous land, it once was to many people, and disturbing the earth would be one thing. But then you have that struggle of, but this is a scientific endeavor. And, we deal with those ethical issues in the world all the time when it comes to, the earth and scientific exploration, and what sacrifices do we have to make to further science. And that was, again, a big source of contention in the first season. Is that going to be a big part of season 2 as well? Because so much seems to be going on underground at Skinwalker Ranch and above, but a lot underground too, it seems.
Both above and below. And, we're forced in the effort to advance the investigation to take more aggressive measures. And you'll see that played out. And I think you'll see that presented transparently to the public. One thing we've tried to do is take the necessary safety precautions. And Dragon, my head of security, was really charged with the added responsibility of really kind of adding an additional layer of protection and monitoring that you'll see played out. But it is definitely going to be a key part of exploring the ranch and our investigation. And it's a known fact that bad things happen when you disturb the earth out at the ranch. And sometimes it's not immediate. Sometimes it's in a short period of time following. But there are anomalous incidents that occur that defy explanation, and some negative things. And I'm quickly reminded by my principal investigator, Eric Bard, that correlation does not mean causation. Correlation is not causation. And just because we have correlating events doesn't mean that they're necessarily connected. But I think there is compelling evidence that we're dealing with some connectivity between activities that are conducted on the ranch and some of the bad things that happen. I mean, it is a dangerous place. The reason why this is a secure site and why we keep this entire 512 acre assemblage locked down under constant surveillance is not only to protect the integrity of the scientific investigation, which is very sensitive and ongoing 24/7, but it's to protect those who are innocent, to those who really may end up being harmed as a result of, connection with the property and coming on the property, whether they be trespassers or not. I mean, there are numerous accounts of people, both authorized and unauthorized, that have had experiences. And, we had one incident where someone trespassed. We actually, security had to call law enforcement, and the individual who trespassed had such a negative experience. They were terrified, and they were they were difficult to detain because they had such a negative experience before law enforcement arrived that caused them great concern. So interesting things happen.
Yeah, they hopefully won't be sneaking on again anytime soon after that. I think they learned their lesson.
Yeah.
Well, spiritualism you mentioned as well. As a man of faith that you've shared in other interviews and whatnot growing up, how has this changed your I guess, has it changed your faith? Has it changed your sort of sense of reality and the nature of reality in terms of what you grew up believing in the world, and then boom, it's just kind of flipped on its head?
That's a good question. Strangely enough, I've found my experience to be faith affirming. I was raised to believe that there are worlds without number, that we are not alone in the universe, and that there are other dimensions of reality that sit alongside ours that are just as real. The afterlife is just another dimension of reality, the spirit world, if you will, or whatever label you want to place on it. But actually proving it scientifically and having a degree of empiricism with that scientific approach to addressing these topics is something that is missing, and something that we've been trying to bring to the table. And I found that, our investigation, although at times disturbing and to members of the team terrifying, is also inspiring, because it proves that there is, I believe, an intelligent design to our existence on this planet, and that we're not alone. Now, I get asked the question all the time, do you think it's aliens? Do you believe that it's interdimensional entities? Or do you believe that it is angels and demons and spiritual phenomena? And in the honest answer that I can give is yes, all of the above. So far, based on our observations and the data, I believe we're seeing a diversity of origin and agendas associated with the experiences on the ranch, which talk about making a complicated, problem set that much more difficult. I mean, it's, and then, to be dealing with what many people have referred to as a precognitive sentient intelligence that is 1-2 steps ahead of us. And the fact that things are happening that are beyond our control, that have an intelligence associated with them is a little unnerving. But we try to go about it in the right spirit. We talk about spirituality. I think preparing yourself, and again, I've noticed on a number of occasions people who bring negativity to the ranch, that bring a spirit of contention or negativity, end up experiencing negativity. The ranch seems to be reflexive, or at least seems to respond in a very dynamic way to the spirituality or the psychology of those who enter. So I think it's really important to be prepared. And everyone who comes on the property, whether it be third-party engineers, consultants, I mean, we've had a number of engineering consultants and subject matter experts, whether it be, ground penetrating radar studies, resistivity studies, drone operators, we've had the rocketry experiments, the instrumented weather balloons, et cetera. Every one of the people that have come onto the property to help conduct these experiments, I believe, have left scratching their heads, have seen one or more unexplained events occur associated with their engagement. And I think that's compelling. You couple the witness testimony, multiple witness testimony, with actual recorded anomalies that are correlative to UFO activity above the ranch and other strangeness. And I mean, you really have what I believe to be the most compelling ongoing record of paranormal activity and a scientific investigation into these topics than ever before. I've never seen anything on television like what we are bringing to the public. And I don't say that arrogantly. I say that proudly as someone who really takes pride and in our work. And really, I love our team. It's a family. Most of my team go back, if not a decades back to my childhood. You'd mentioned Dr. Lee earlier that came out to the property. I've known Dr. Lee since we were in 5th grade. We've been best friends. And he's a skeptic. I mean, Dr. Lee came out, he's a scientist, but he kept an open mind. And when looking at the data, he felt that at least some degree of serious consideration was warranted. That speaks volumes.
Absolutely. I think you're right. Again, when it's turning the heads of a lot of these scientists you've brought in as skeptics and coming out on the other side, kind of being speechless, that does say something.
Yeah. You notice everything, whether it be the rocketry experiments or the instrumented balloon experiments, or ground penetrating radar or whatever studies, you recognize a common thread. All of them end up shaking their head and saying, we've never had this experience before. And I hear the skeptics. I see on the message boards and on social media, those who are like, well, you're not presenting any evidence. This is all a bunch of baloney, or they're really, really critical. And I have a hard time understanding a lot of the criticism. In many ways, I think it's just laziness. I think people aren't watching, they're not paying attention, and they're not doing their own due diligence. Because if they were, I think they would see how compelling this investigation and this research really is.
I want to move to some listener questions, Brandon.
Bring it on.
I got a ton of them. Let's fire them off here.
Throw some hard balls at me. Come on.
Okay, let's do it. I got a couple. And again, for anyone, we didn't really cover what is going on in season 2 too much because we want people to see it. But I can attest you do at least 2 big experiments in the first episode that were really interesting.
Season 2 is game changing. What you've seen is it's child's play. It's the tip of the iceberg. And again, no one expected it. I mean, when I engaged with the History Channel and we started filming season 1, I sat everyone down and I said, look, in full disclosure, I had no strange, unusual experience for the first 6 months that I owned the property. And if you think that coming out and filming for 3 to 4 months, even if you're on site, stationed, is going to result in being able to conjure up paranormal activity that you can capture on camera, you may be very disappointed. And that's a possibility, and a very real possibility. And it has been it's been a pleasant surprise to see results, to actually see interactions. So bring on the questions. Anything.
Let's do it. Well, in terms of results and data, I think a lot of not criticism so much as observation from viewers has been, okay, we see what's on camera. We understand it's a television show, and there's many struggles with trying to do an active investigation while cameras are on you. Like, I understand that completely. I've done some of that TV work in my past, and it's frustrating, because there are certain things you have to do on TV, and then there's the active investigation going on. A lot of my viewers and listeners want to know data and evidence. Is there any plans of making those findings public in whether it's a website or a forum or somewhere where people can go to kind of continue the investigations you guys are doing on the show?
So we've established a web portal. It's at www.skinwalker-ranch.com. Again, that's www.skinwalker-ranch.com. And we intend to use that as a resource to engage the public and to download data, to share, to collaborate. We haven't been able to, we just haven't had the time. And with COVID this past year, so many complications. And, I work 18-hour days every day with regularity. Over 95% of my attention and focus is not on the ranch. Unfortunately, I really do run a high stress commercial real estate enterprise and other ventures. And so, in time, we do intend in the months to come to continue to populate that site. And you can go there and see that. So it is our intention to share that data. But a lot of it, you're right. I mean, when you have battery drainage that happens instantaneously on the property, you have equipment malfunctions, which have been captured time and time again. I mean, we have drones fall out of the sky with no explanation. And when asking seasoned drone operators, have you ever seen this before? And in your several years of flying drones and being on crews and on various surveys, have you experienced this? And when all of them, for the most part, unanimously say, nope, we've never experienced this, that's data. That's a freaking data point. Yeah. And I think people are missing that. I mean, sometimes they're missing that. We're collecting and presenting, I think, some of the most compelling data documenting the phenomena. So we do intend to continue to engage and bring that forward. And I believe that it's part of my stewardship. Next question.
Awesome. All right. That was the number one, the most popular question we had. Number 2 and 3, I'm going to mix together here. everyone loves your suits, man. So, A, where do you get your suits? You're always in a suit. Are they tailored? And the second part of this question, kind of in the same realm, how did you get Post Malone on the ranch? And how did that happen? What was that all about?
Good question. So, I have, I've always had custom tailored suits. Armani, Zegna, and Canali are really my three brands of choice. And I have a tailor who has all of my measurements, who is constantly making me suits. This suit that I have on today is a Canali suit. I'm dealing in business, and I've always been quite formal since I was a teenager. So it's been part of my uniform, so to speak, from the beginning. I don't have a pair of jeans, and it's simply because I my wardrobe, I'm in a suit most days of the week, and if you catch me without a tie on, it's me being a bit casual. The other question, what was the other question you had?
Oh, Post Malone. This thing went viral when he tweeted that out. Yeah, how'd that happen?
Okay, so Post Malone, very, very fun experience with Austin. His people actually reached out to my people. In fact, his a wealth advisor that I trust, that I network with in the community, is also engaged and is in Austin Post's trusted circle. And it was funny. I got a call from him and was expecting that we were just going to be discussing some business opportunity or economic development. And after 5 or 10 minutes of idle chit chat, he said, "Look, Brandon, I hate to admit this, but I didn't call you to discuss business. I called you to ask for a favor." He says, I have a client, an associate that has been obsessed with the paranormal since he was a child. And he's obsessed with the ranch. He's been reading everything available relative to Skinwalker Ranch, and it's at the top of his bucket list to come out, to meet you and the team, and to actually see the ranch and to discuss a lot of what is happening. And I said, okay, it's not open to the public. I don't open it for tours. But who is this? And he says, well, his name is Post Malone. You may have heard of him. He's an artist. He's kind of a big deal. And I said, yeah, I've heard of Post Malone. I couldn't recall a song right off the top of my head because I'm frankly stuck in the 80s most of the time, listening to Depeche Mode and Duran Duran, OMD, along with 80s hair metal like Poison and Def Leppard, Rat, Queen's
I'm
Ride.
with you on those, man.
So, I'm a product of that time, and so I wasn't quite up to speed. And I said, well, let me check with my team. We'll consider it. And I hate to admit it, but I didn't really respond back, and he had to follow up with me several times. It was relentless, and I finally said, okay, out of respect for our relationship, I'll be happy to entertain him, and we'll arrange it with the team to come out and spend a weekend. And then I pulled up everything online and did my due diligence, and I was so embarrassed. Here you have arguably the greatest artist on the planet, Billboard Artist of the Year 2 years in a row, an incredible talent. I mean, I believe he's outsold Michael Jackson's Thriller, and I'm a musician. I grew up with rock bands, electronica, oriented bands, through my junior high school and high school years. And so as I pulled up all of his work, I was just amazed. And so I was a little nervous when we went out there, and he showed up with 3 security, all with assault rifles. And that was in addition to my security with, I had Dragon, Caleb, we had our team there.
Yeah.
And, really long story short, he's not only an incredible artist, but he's an incredible human being. Austin Post was a lot of fun to engage with. And we really did a deep dive in the command center and really studied various aspects of the phenomena. I mean, a lot of everything from the signal processing that we go through to how we're really conducting the investigation out there. And, we spent gosh, we spent a whole day, 8 hours together. And yeah, it was fun. At one point, we ditched the security and just went out exploring the south end of the ranch. And it was just a lot of fun. We're just out in the middle of nowhere and just two guys, comparing notes on the paranormal and our own experiences. And it was a great privilege. We hope to welcome him back. In fact, we'll see if things come together, but he mentioned that he wanted to come out and possibly be part of an experiment or the investigation. And, he really is a sincere researcher. I think a lot of people don't realize that. He's not someone who's just trying to come out and pull a publicity stunt. In fact, he didn't want any publicity. I timidly asked him if it'd be okay if we took some pictures, and he was totally cool and authorized it. So it was really fun. We really have a diversity of people out there. And one thing I want to impress upon your audience is the fact that we pulled together a multidisciplinary team of experts, of trusted confidants and subject matter experts across a wide spectrum in order to really understand what is happening on this really mysterious piece of property. And I think it's yielding incredible results. Oh, by the way, I'm not going to spoil anything, and it's not my story to tell, but Post Malone and his security ended up having their own experience late at night before leaving. So I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, hopefully he'll make that public soon. That'd be pretty cool. Yeah, that was really cool. He's from my hometown, and he had a pretty dramatic UFO sighting there when he was a kid. So that was, one of our bragging moments in Syracuse, New York. But I thought that was pretty awesome. And of course he had an experience. Of course he did.
Yeah, he's awesome. It was a pleasure bringing him out, and look forward to continuing our friendship and potential engagement. So bring up more questions.
Let's do it, my man. All right. Window areas, portals. Now, that was one of the biggest things back when, the book first came out with George Knapp and all those guys and Dr. Eric Davis. A portal opening and a creature coming out of it. I mean, that's just that's sci-fi to the nth degree. But this happened on the ranch, apparently. So are you guys going to be exploring portals at all in the show? And have there ever been any experiences like that on the ranch since you've owned it?
Hell yes. So yeah, a lot of the most classic incidents that have been reported were by Dr. Eric Davis, who served for quite a period of time with the Bigelow team in investigation. I have a lot of respect for Eric. And we've welcomed him out to the property, and he's shown us where those events occurred. But we've had some really compelling things happen, and I'm really excited. I mean, that's one of the things I'm most excited to reveal to the public and to show is the result of our investigation into whether there are portal or wormhole phenomena on the property. Is there a legitimate case or claim to be made that there are portals to other dimensions of reality or other worlds? And what hard evidence and data do we have that would at least attest to that and both literally and figuratively open those doors? So hold on tight. You're about ready to see some really interesting things unfold. And it's been like Christmas Eve for me, waiting for this damn season to start. The production process, getting everything, finalized and turned into the network, it's a process. And I have to give great credit to the team at Prometheus. I have incredible partners with both Prometheus, History Channel, and A&E Network. And they've kept their deal. They have total integrity with respect to our engagement. I had an agreement with them from the beginning that there would be nothing contrived, nothing fabricated, that it would be truth, absolute truth presented. This would be in every sense an unscripted documentary effort. And guess what? They've kept their side of the deal. And, they've done a great job with engaging with my team. I mean, Dragon and I go back to age 19 together. I mean, we've been dear friends since 19. And yes, he's always had that resting bitch face.
That was I take back my number one question. That was my number one question.
Yeah, it's permanent. And by the way, that's a technical term. I wasn't using profanity. I'm told that's a technical term, and
yes.
So it's not inappropriate. But these relationships span decades. I mean, Jim Morse, who I affectionately refer to as Uncle Jim. Jim was my first big client at age 18. He was developing a 6-story office tower out in our, suburban market, and a big master plan 45-acre project. And he took a risk on me, and he allowed me to engage as his broker as a teenager, marketing his office building at the time. And I don't take that trust lightly, never have. And, out of that experience in really developing many buildings and other investments together, we built this trust, and he was the first person to lay eyes on the ranch. When I flew out in my helicopter and first saw it from that vantage point, I didn't drive in the first time I saw that ranch. I actually saw it from above and came down in the field just outside of the ranch house and was greeted by Bigelow security, who was, armed and ready to do a full tour of the property and the perimeter. Jim was the one who accompanied me and has been a trusted confidant and really the community liaison. I don't think there's anyone that loves the Native American peoples more than Jim. I mean, Jim has a special relationship with tribal leaders. And I think that engagement with the community, with the tribes, has been a very important part of my stewardship. And I hope that's coming through in the program. Anyway, sorry to get off on a tangent. More questions?
No, that's a really good point to bring up, because a lot of listeners also were wondering, what was your relationship with the Navajo out there and everything?
It was strained. So yeah. the relationship was very strained between the previous ownership and occupants and the tribal leaders by their own admission. Meaning by the tribes admitted that there really wasn't a warm association or a collaborative effort, and we've tried to change that in a big way. And again, nothing disparaging about about my predecessors. I have nothing but respect for Robert Bigelow and his team, and applaud his courage and their courage collectively in coming forward. It takes courage to put yourself out there, to stick your neck out. And I mean, you tell me, Ryan, how many credible business leaders have been willing to step forward, not only with their money, with financial investment of significant size, but also willingness to put their reputation on the line. The tribal leaders have advised their people for generations not to look the way of this property. It's very real, and we have firsthand accounts and historical documentation that attests to the fact that people have avoided even mentioning the term skinwalker. It's very taboo. We're making it more commonplace, for better or for worse. But I think a lot of people don't realize that just even the mention or the discussion of skinwalkers is forbidden and frowned upon. It's really frowned upon in Native American circles. I mean, you really have to be careful. And I sometimes forget it because we just take for granted that we're in the middle of this. Anyway, sorry for the aside there.
Not at all. That's such a good point. I mean, the term skinwalker, has sort of, it's been spawned from a curse. So that is a completely understandable thing.
Oh yeah, it's very real. It is so real and terrifying to the Native Americans out there. That you have. Even if you haven't had an experience, even if you don't believe it, I think you have to take a step back and respect that it is definitely real to them, and it's a part of their cultural history and tradition, and something that is to be respected.
I guess kind of bringing it more current, Brandon. We've got this report due very soon from the Pentagon UFO Task Force. Again, I can't believe I'm saying that as a UFO researcher who's been doing this for so long and this is where we're at. So have you ever been approached by this UAP task force? I know that you've spoken to representatives in Utah about what you're doing on the ranch, which was pretty cool to see in season 1. But any government involvement? We also had a question of, do you hold any sort of security clearance? We know that the Pentagon was funding the former owner of Skinwalker Ranch. And what do you think of all this Pentagon stuff? Is this going to come into play at all with the work you're doing at Skinwalker Ranch?
Good questions. No, I have never held a security clearance or been involved with any government program at all. I have no desire to. And as much as I love my country and consider myself a patriot, and I'm completely transparent and open and collaborative, I have no interest in taking, monies or having this be part of any type of government-sponsored or funded project. I think that the best results always come from the private sector. No offense to the highly competent people in the intelligence and aerospace communities, but I think private sector innovation, collaboration has always brought forward discoveries in a more dynamic way. And I think keeping this private and maintaining the integrity of this project has been an important part of my stewardship. I was summoned to Washington, D.C. with the team to give testimony relative to our investigation and how we have advanced our investigation at Skinwalker Ranch. And I'm sure I'll touch on that in future episodes, hopefully, or future interviews. But we, again, in the spirit of transparency, we have nothing to hide and believe that the public has a right to know and that this will come forward. Now, as it relates to this big disclosure event that everyone's anticipating, I'll buy the drinks if there's anything compelling that comes forward, and I'll tell you why. I think most of the really compelling data and evidence has been long sequestered into special compartmentalized access programs in private industry and is unlikely to be revealed. And I think a lot of people can't handle it. I mean, I look at how much my effort has been ridiculed and criticized by people, and I'm like, gosh, do your due diligence, people. In the first 20 minutes of episode 1 of season 1, I revealed more in that 20 minutes than I'd seen revealed in 20 years relative to this topic. And they're complaining. I'm like, what? After a drought of decades of literally eating their own young. And that's kind of the state of ufology to a degree in a lot of respects, which is unfortunate, is there's a territorial critical nature to it that is counterproductive, and it's very half glass empty instead of half glass full. And I look at the abundance of what we are being blessed with and fortunate to be gathering out here in this very real living laboratory, this secure site that has been unusually, locked down for 24, 25 years. And, this represents, I think, the best opportunity for the private sector to bring forward advancements relative to understanding the nature of the phenomena. I mean, the big questions are what is the origin? What is the agenda? And who knows? We'll find out, hopefully, at some point.
I agree with you. And again, I think people need to keep in mind, in the UFO community or research community or what have you, that for so long they haven't trusted the government because there is a legitimate cover-up of the topic. Yeah, yet now they're looking for the answers from the government.
That's what these fools don't realize. I'm not the government. I'm an outsider. Yep. I'm your partner in discovery. If you're going to throw stones, throw them where they deserve to be thrown. Give us some support. Put your weight behind us. I mean, let's put as much positive energy behind this process of discovery as possible, and hopefully that collective energy and collaboration is going to result in, I think, the greatest discoveries of our time.
That's actually my last question for you, Brendan. What do you hope to accomplish? I mean, what did you go in wanting to do with the ranch? has that evolved or changed at all? Or what do you hope the science or the discoveries that you make there, what will it do for both the scientific community and I guess in the world in general? What do you hope to accomplish with Skinwalker Ranch?
Good question. We hope to bring forward, I think, the best evidence that we are not alone and that there is more to our reality than meets the eye, that we are just scratching the surface of understanding the nature of not only our reality, but our consciousness, and being able to delve into these topics in a disciplined manner with scientific rigor, with respect, and with resources, I think is an unprecedented opportunity for all of us. And I think it's, you've heard me say it, many people would claim that it's hyperbole, but I really believe that this is the greatest science project of our time. I'm surprised that the mainstream media isn't more tuned in to what we're doing. But that's okay. I understand. I started off as a skeptic. People say, well, are you a believer now? And I'm like, no, I'm not a believer. I'm an experiencer. I don't believe. I know there's something going on that defies explanation. And we're going to try to get to the bottom of it.
Awesome. And I know you guys are. I mean, again, just from that first episode I saw, it's just, you're all in, and I love that. I can hear and see the passion and the genuine nature that and curiosity you have for this topic. This isn't you don't need to be doing this. No. Like you said, Skinwalker Ranch is 5% of what you do in your daily life, or everything that you're involved with. So it's clear that you just have a genuine curiosity.
But it could very well be the most important thing that I do in my life.
Well,
but
it's
been
a
privilege. Man. I look forward to engaging with you further. And as you've seen, I have nothing to hide. All these other fools, these other people that are all kind of playing mind games with each other in this space and, have their own weird, crazy agendas, whatever. More power to them. But we're laser focused on really getting bottom line results. No mercy, sweep the leg, as they said in Karate Kid.
Yep, sweep the leg. All right, my man. Thank you, Brandon.
Very good. Take care.
Somewhere in the Skies podcast is part of the LIONSGATE Sound Network. Please take a moment to rate and review the show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever possible. Thank you for listening.